Hey, so I'm gonna go through how I teach Intro to Dagger to folks, assuming that they've been fighting with single sword for a fair amount of time and have some level of competency in that. Essentially are able to close the line, throw a lunge. Those are all critical pieces to do prior to kind of picking up a dagger, at least I believe so. We'll be working at a Tom Leone's translation of the giganti. Specifically, we'll be looking at plates 21, and I'll show those here in a second. 21, right? How to parry and counterattack against a thrust to the face with sword and dagger. Parry and counterattack against the left flank. Parry and counterattack against the right flank. And then finally, parry and counterattack against a thrust to the face. So plates 21 through 24. I think critically in teaching dagger, there are some components we need to start and understand, right? If we're thinking about a dagger as a piece of equipment for getting us not just points, but to keep us safe, right? We still want to apply all the same principles we apply when fencing with a single rapier, right? So you still want to parry with your leading edge. Essentially, what you have here is a little forte, right? Depending on how long your dagger is, this is Franken dagger. I don't suggest anybody use a Franken dagger like I do, but that's what I got. So you still want to parry with your true edge. You don't want to windshield wiper it, right? You don't want to move in big circles. As you would with a rapier, you still use this very much like a little forte, putting it to the outside of your presence to close lines and to pick up blades, right? So there's still finds and gains. They're still closing. They're just slightly separate and different compared to, say, a longer rapier, right? So this initial attack, right, which is a thrust to the left flank. When we define flank in this, it will be your floating rib down, right, and your offside, right? So the kind of the four quadrants we're talking about during dagger play are, if you take from your center line down to your floating rib and over, right? This will be my left upper side, my left side. This will be from my floating rib down to about my natural, not my bending hip right here, but my actual hip bone is my left flank. On this side, right, we have center line, again, down to your floating rib and over. And then finally, your right flank, assuming a right-handed fencer. These all reverse if you have a left-handed fencer, obviously. So my right flank is for my floating rib, again, down to my hip bone. So where we're hitting with a lot of these, and kind of the point of our dagger and our intro thing, is to just get it, much like we would on an intro rapier on how to close a line and subsequently move, right? We want to do that same thing with a dagger. So the first two attacks in giganti are, the first one is to your upper offhand side, the side holding the dagger. For me, that will be my left. And the second one is to my left flank. Now, if you're standing in a typical on guard, right, these don't look like they're super open. But a lot of times what we'll see with dagger is people tend to square up, opening up that line and opening up that for an attack. Sometimes that can be a bait, lots of times it isn't. People just want to get that dagger out there. So primary among them, the first kind of step I'll do, they'll have a student take an on guard, kind of keeping this line closed. Your dagger is relatively horizontal. Notice that your arm is bent in the dagger, right? It's not outstretched, it's not reaching. The dagger is very vertical, right? Because physics says that the more vertical a thing is, the more power we have to exert over it. You can lead this down if you so wish, but once you make that gain on your opponent's blade, you're gonna wanna go vertical as possible to prevent quick and easy cavazions. So the first attack would be a lunge to this upper quadrant, my like left pectoral, left shoulder, potentially my left ribs. In stopping that, I have my students hold their sword on line like they normally would, or an empty hand. They have their arm bent, their arm is in line, and all you need to do to close that is extend the arm straight, right? By extending the arm straight, I'm going to turn my dagger how you would not want, with the flat of the blade showing. The flat, or the edge, my true edge, is in line with my left shoulder, right? And that essentially closes all of that upper line. So I can put it even lower, I can extend it straight out, but the key is, that is the attack. right? Where they find and gain with the dagger, right? Now, the key point being, you're making an assumption that your opponent is attacking in this, and if you attack, right, with the dagger, you can see that this opens up. So on a fellow right-handed fencer, if they were lunging for right here, I would pick up here, and in the same tempo, I would aim for right under their armpit. Coaches, just get ready to get hit in the armpit here. It's gonna suck, but it teaches good targeting for this, so that if the person doesn't fully commit, they can't just parry over with their dagger quickly, because you can see, even with my dagger, even with a dagger, if a lunge comes in here, it's not simple for me to get, look how much motion I need to get my body over, to get my dagger onto someone's blade. So this is a great target area. So it's right from the armpit, following down the side, what would be a side seam of their doublet, and to their upper hip. The closer you can get it to the armpit, the more you can hide it in the shadow of their arm, and the less likely a person is to react to it. You don't want to come up into the neck, right? If they are going to kavatsi on a round, you want them to keep it here, right? So the striking area is here. When I practice, I look for my lymph node under my armpit, and I put my finger there, and then my students hit that lymph node. Sometimes hard, and that fucking happens, right? Because this is all supposed to be one tempo action, right? Like that, right? So as they go to defend, right, the full action, I'm on guard. My arm extends once my left arm, which is parrying, reaches extension. My right arm should come up to close that inside line, hitting my opponent in the armpit, closing that line out completely, right? So at fuller speed, there it is. That will have grabbed their blade if they throw for this quadrant and put my sword right into their armpit. Now, if you miss, that's totally fine, right? This is a harder target area to hit. Sometimes you can roll off the body. Sometimes your point control is just a little off. It's fine. You can easily do a false edge cut or step through, maintaining pressure, and cut. By stepping through, notice where my dagger hand still extends out. It steps through, going farther down on my opponent's main blade. I turn over and I throw the cut under the arm or low on the body as I continue to pass through. So, again, if your opponent in dagger attacks from your center line over to your left pec, assuming you're a right-handed fencer, to your shoulder, the defense for that is just extend and hit under the armpit in the same tempo, right? Now, the key is that they're the same tempo. We don't want, right? We don't want this. I'm gonna hold my dagger forward so you can see it a little better. No. This is the same tempo because we're shooting for right under that armpit. We don't want our opponent to be able to see what we're doing and pick it up with the dagger. Other things you can do, put a piece of tape right here under your armpit, and coaches, feel free to take your hand and do this as you're getting hit so they hit the palm of your hand, because I can tell you, getting hit in the armpit repeatedly sucks. But it is where you should have your students aiming. And it is the outcome as outlined in Giganti. So in the next video, I'm going to go over the next one. I'm just going to break these into pieces.